Hello, everyone. So, you might have seen my video I uploaded about the crisis that is happening in America with gun violence and political violence in general. And I'm thinking, I don't know how we can solve this issue, at least not by myself. So, since I'm starting this YouTube channel, I do want to express my voice on how this crisis that we have in America is very serious, and I just want to express how I feel about living in a society like this. And I don't know how to fix this. And it just seems like it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Basically every day. Politicians are getting killed now. Charlie Kirk just got killed. The president tried to get assassinated a few times. Children can't even go to school without leaving in body bags. That's almost every day. You can't go to church and pray without some lunatic coming in and blazing a gun all over the place. America is the epicenter of chaos and violence and mental health problems. So I'm going to react to a channel I actually been following for several years now, but I just kind of like rediscovered him lately. And he's from Chicago, and he knows all just as much as I do about this issue we here in America express. His channel is James Bray. I believe I'm saying that properly. And I'm going to watch and react to his video, and then I'm going to express how I feel and if we express the same feelings about how things are, what are happening here in America. So let's get to this.
I don't want to send my kids to school and be afraid that they're not going to come back home.
Right now, currently in America, we do not have the best reputation, and yet a lot of people
And of course, I'll have his video in the description below.
are still clouded by what is happening around them. Now, you guys have followed my journey and stuff from me doing reaction videos 7 years ago up to recently, where I finally got to travel to Europe, specifically Germany, and then eventually the Netherlands and Belgium as well, just for a short period of time. But my experience absolutely blew my mind. And
Yes.
I noticed something that honestly broke my heart being out in Europe. The safety I experienced out there. And there's several
I never felt scared in my life. I never felt like my life was in danger when I was in Germany or even in Paris, France. And even in Paris, France, I didn't feel the anxiety that I had living here in America. And I'll tell you why specifically in Paris, France. Because I was in Paris, France, October of 2016. It wasn't even a full year yet after that massive terrorist attack that killed, I believe, like over 200 people and wounded like 700 more. I even watched that on the news for like 3 days straight, and then I went to Paris the very next year, and I never felt. Sure, I was still probably on edge slightly, but not to the degree of here in America.
angles we're going to attack when it comes to the feeling of safety. Does this mean that in Europe you're going to feel 100% safe
No.
all the time? Not quite, but definitely more so than in America. And
Like I said, I didn't feel fully safe, but compared to the degree of being in Paris or anywhere in Germany or whatever it was, to the degree just living here, is still off the charts.
In many ways than one, and we're going to be breaking that down in this video. So before we get started, make sure you like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. One of the
Do it
main
on this
things
channel
that I
and
know
do it
you'll
on my
get a lot
channel.
of flack for, that I will defend till the end of time, is that you can be yourself. Now, will there be a little bit of judgment from some people? Probably, but
Yeah.
you can be yourself safely in Europe. In America, we have to put up a facade so that we don't give off mixed signals to a random passerby that might possibly take our lives.
Yeah, so there's one thing my mom told me when I was very young was never tell anybody who you voted for because it could be dangerous. And this was back the late 90s when political violence was still probably really high. But to compare that to now is it's out of the universe now. I don't like talk about politics because how insane people are now. There's no like back and forth. It's just violence. Oh, you didn't agree with this person? I just pull a gun out and just start shooting you. It's insane, and I don't blame anybody from outside not wanting to come here because of that. And it's very heartbreaking what he was saying and what I'm seeing all over the place.
At this point, it's not even a joke, it's reality. When we step outside to go grocery shopping, to go to a concert, or to run day-to-day tasks, or whatever have you, when we step outside those doors in America, the very real reality that someone could crash out and kill us, it's a real thing.
I'm very emotional for a lot of reasons, because we are getting on our plane to Paris to get to the Netherlands, relocating our entire family. I have 3 children, and one of the main motivators is that I don't want to send my kids to school and be afraid that they're not going to come back home.
At the rate that gun violence has accelerated in the United States, it's scary.
ABC7 data shows at least 54 people were shot and 7 were killed over the Labor Day holiday weekend. Now, the violence comes as President Trump threatens to deploy the National Guard to Chicago to crack down on crime. Now, the weekend violence includes 3 mass shootings, 2 of them in Bronzeville.
And that's why I talk about it all the time. So being able to drop your guard and truly be who you are as a person in Europe is refreshing, and that is something I didn't.
And I think there's what we're missing here in America that might be causing a lot of problems. It's a catch-22, by the way, and it's lack of community, which causes more violence, but the violence puts everybody on edge, which cuts down more community, because nobody wants to be around people now, because oh my gosh, I might say something and trigger them and they'll just pull out a gun and kill me. And for some reason, I have this with phone calls. I hate making phone calls. First thing, little side note here, I couldn't hear for the first 4 years of my life, so sign was my first language, technically. And then English, and I know partial German, but like when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily have too much fear of being around people. I still don't necessarily have fear of being around people, as long as I don't really talk to them. But it's getting built up more and more, and I would like to have a community like this. Just being out on a picnic like this, being outside enjoying a meal with friends and family like that, it would be awesome. But it's not, that's not reality. Reality is waking up or getting off work at 3 and seeing, oh, 3 kids were killed at school today. Mass shooter killed themselves. And it's just like, that happened like 2 days ago, and it's happening again today. It's just ridiculous.
Not get to fully experience in America, and I realized that when I traveled to Germany, I felt like all of the limiters were turned off. I got to finally explore sides of myself I had never experienced before, and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. Then there's this aspect where I felt safer in Europe knowing that the people are taken better care of in general by their government than in America. Let me elaborate a little bit. In America, right, people say that the country is built for the rich.
And now I would say, regardless of Europe in general, there are many problems with Europe, but your problems are reasonable problems, unlike our problems. I break my leg, I'm done for. I have health insurance, but they will only cover so much, and it will bankrupt me completely. Over there, you break your leg, you go to the doctors, taxpayers paid for it. That's helping the communities. And I think we get taxed the most, and we have nothing to show for it. It's crazy.
Rich and the poor. Meaning, if you are poor enough to accept government assistance from the United States, then yeah, life might be a bit more enjoyable because you have some help. And then if you're at the top, you can afford everything in every which way but loose. But the funny thing is, in America, the system is very much gamed by the government, where they claim that people make too much to afford government assistance, but unfortunately, they don't have enough funds to secure survivability in their very own country that they live in. And it's sad. It's so sad. When I was able to talk to a lot of you guys that are subscribed to this channel in person, that was life altering for me. I mean, the fact that you guys don't have to worry about healthcare, the fact that you guys don't have
Like
to
I
worry
was just
about
saying.
the overwhelming burden of student loans or
Yeah.
crippling debt, that blew my mind. It to me was a foreign concept, because I'm like, there's no way. Like, you guys obviously know what it's like to have crushing student debt and, you know, hospital bills that are absolutely gonna break your ancestral chain and
Yeah.
debt and stuff like that. No, that was something that fortunately for them, they never got to experience because their government.
Like I said right before he made that point, I break my leg, I'm done for. Or if I get sick in any type of way, I'm done for. If I have to spend at least 2 or 3 days in the hospital, it's a wrap. I'm done.
Government values people's lives on a very basic level that I feel like worldwide should be a thing. And again, for America claiming that it is the best country in the world,
I just want to tell you that America is the greatest place on earth.
or at least one of the mighty few, I think that that's something that the government should look at prioritizing for its people, making sure people live long, healthy lives and stuff, and having basic human rights that allow them to sustain a reasonable cost of living. Medication being unaffordable in the United States is absolutely abominable.
Here's the difference between medication costs in Australia, the US, and Scotland. Americans, you're getting shafted, by the way. I've got 5 common medications, and I'm going to tell you how much they cost in Australia, how much they cost in the US, and how much they cost in Scotland, and you're going to be shocked, especially by the last one on the list. The reason I'm doing this is because Donald Trump is trying to put a 200% tariff on Australian exports of pharmaceuticals. That's possibly going to drive up the prices of medications in Australia. Here we go, a salbutamol inhaler in Australia, $7 US, that's about £4. The good old US of A, 77 Australian dollars, that's about 40 quid. Scotland is free. Torvastatin, 30 tablets, $6.70 in Australia, $2,628 in America, free in Scotland. Leprozole, $6 in Australia.
We would be happy if it was $6. But it was almost $3,000 for 30 pills. People have to pay that monthly, especially our seniors. And nobody has the resources for this stuff.
Australia, $326 in the US, free in Scotland. Zithromycin, which is an antibiotic, 5 tablets, $7.70 in Australia, $155 in America, free in Scotland. Here's the biggie, Phosphobir is a cure for hepatitis C. Australian government giving this out for free to eradicate Hep C. In Scotland it's free. In the US it's $84,500. Oh my god.
It's to a point where literally the only people
my
who can afford
God.
it are the ultra rich. There's
Yeah.
medications ultra rich people purchase
Because-
all the time. Just
Who else is affording $84,000 for that? That's that's almost life-changing. Not quite life-changing, but it would definitely help people out. It would definitely help a lot of people out.
cuz, just for the love of the game. And people, meanwhile, who are struggling and actually need it, can't. They literally cannot afford it.
They
and
can't.
wind up dying because literally they could not.
60,000 people die each year because of lack of medical care here in the United States. And then plus 30 to 35,000 more die from gun violence.
For the medication that would have helped cure whatever illness or disease, or at least ease the pain of whatever they were going through. In Europe, it's so different because it's affordable. And in some cases, they just give it to you. I'm like, oh my gosh. I understand the attitudes that Europeans have. America, when we look at a lot of Europeans, we're like, wow, you guys are cocky and snobbish. And I think they're all projections. When you really look at how we perceive Europeans, right? They come to America and visit and stuff like that, and they're like, wow. I mean, I do like a lot of aspects of the United States, but it's so unfortunate that this and this and this and this and this are happening to you guys. I came across a thread on Reddit, and it was a whole subreddit of very pissed off Americans that could not acknowledge that there was a problem inside their own country. I'm American myself, and I can at least acknowledge that, right? There are a plethora.
I will be on his boat and agree that we are, well, I guess not me, because I kind of see a lot of problems, but majority of people, they act like nothing's happening. And I think that's why the crisis is getting worse as it is.
Amount of problems in the United States that we could cover until my face turns blue. But the fact of the matter is, I think that what America is amazing at is brainwashing most of its people into thinking that, yeah, everything's good, everything's fine. But then you'll turn around and complain about why groceries are sky high and why your job isn't paying you enough. And why, even if you're making
the scapegoating all those trans people, it's the Mexican down the road that you can't afford your house anymore, or you haven't gotten a raise in 3 years, or medication, you can't afford your medication because your health insurance denied you to have health. Yeah, they can deny you. That's why that one CEO got killed last year, because they denied, well, specifically that one guy, healthcare. And it seems like we're in what, September now? People just forgot about it. Yeah, it was big news for like almost a month. Back to the old grind.
Decent salary, you're living paycheck to paycheck because, again, you're paying for a health insurance bill that's ridiculously high. The cost of living is absolutely through the roof, and every which way you turn, it feels like you're getting scammed by the people who are supposed to be taking care of you. And it's unfortunate. It's almost as if the government's trying to profit off of your proof of life, and it doesn't make any sense. I think there are some things that, as Americans, we can do to make the system work better in our favor, and obviously it's starts with voting and legislation and stuff, but identifying what we actually want for ourselves in the country that we live in, because at some point it wasn't so
stopped on a weird spot,
but with all the rules.
But voting, yes, being able to sit down and really kind of like see people's arguments and vote for the person that you think will help society better. But I think the tanglement of society now is it's just so tangled that you can have the best of the best person when all 50 states across the board isn't corrupt, the best, super intelligent, knows how to do this, all this. I think even with that kind of person, and even with all the support that they get, it would still take like 30, 40 years to untangle this mess. Because to reverse the trauma and stuff from what we experienced to past, I guess, since probably 9/11, or even Columbine, it's going to take, it's not going to be easy work. So I'm speechless about it.
Rules being changed and the economy being what it is right now. I think if we were able to travel, and I know it's a privilege because, again, cost of living is incredibly high. So for the very few Americans that are able to make it outside the country and explore any other part of the world for a small period of time or extended period of time, depending on whatever opportunity presents itself, I think it will give you a better understanding of what America is lacking and what America currently has that we can appreciate, and also maybe add.
I was with a friend of mine over there, and I think where were we? Moonstar. And he goes, these schools we're walking by are probably the most expensive in Germany. And then he said the price are like 900 euros a year. And I kind of like, I was just shocked. He's like, that's your most expensive school here is $900 a year? I would love that. I was going at college at the time, and I went to the cheapest school in my area. It was a community college. It was $3,500 a semester. $3,500 a semester. And that was the cheapest school here. I'm still kind of paying that off. And it's been 3.5 years. It's crazy. And like, it's almost like there's a central problem to this. And if at least don't clean up the medical and the schooling stuff, we're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. We're not going to have the best, smartest people. Nobody wants to invest here because we're not investing in ourselves, and our population is going to collapse because everybody's dying at 65. Like, I know several people that died before they could retire, and that's it. Retirement is 67 in this country from cancers. I think they were all cancer. Yeah, they were all cancer, but they couldn't afford anything. If they went to the doctor, they couldn't afford anything.
To make it a lot more desirable of a place than it is currently, because it seems like right now more than ever I'm seeing more people than I've ever seen in my entire life struggle just to live day to day. They're living in storage units, they're living in their cars, and that's a normalcy. And what's crazy about that is the people living in their cars have to avoid getting arrested because you can't sleep in your car apparently in the United States. In fact, would you get in trouble for sleeping in your car in Europe? I mean, maybe, right?
I like to know that question too. Does it depend what country or just in general? But yeah, like when I was a kid, I never remember anybody struggling like how we are now. Like I might have seen like a homeless guy once in a blue moon, but it was not common. It was not common at all. And now it's just but it's a privilege that anybody in my generation owns a house, yet they keep building houses. And I don't know, they keep building houses, but they're not buyable, they're only rent, so nobody can own any. People are miserable here.
I feel like if you're in your humble abode and you're out the way, you're not on someone's property, you should be fine. But it's different in the United States, man.
Yeah.
It's different. Another thing that we'll get into a little deeper in this video is a better sense of policing. I think the public perception of police in Europe is better, way better than it is in America. People shudder at the idea of interacting with cops, but not the same way that they shudder at American cops.
Florida man who was shot at nearly 24 times by law enforcement, not because he was firing at them or running from them, but in fact while he was detained in the back of a patrol car.
Oh, I remember this video.
Let's be honest. I was in Germany for a little bit, in Hamburg to be specific, and I noticed
Never been
when
there,
I
but I
went
want
out
to.
at night, right? I went out with some friends. We went to a few clubs.
I remember the first time I went to Germany. They were having the town I was in, they were having a beer festival, and they were also having like a mustache competition. The really cool, like super long curly mustaches. And the cool thing was, where I was staying with a friend of mine, we walked there. It took us like 5 minutes to get there. It was like in this little plaza place, and people were around having a good time, drinking beer from like their beer steins, and then the beer queen, I think her title was, he came over and busted the keg open, and everybody celebrated. It was fantastic. I never felt that much community since I was a kid. There's some things kind of like that, but it's very corporate feeling, and it kind of gross. That felt more authentic and like I was a part of the town itself, even though I only been there I think like 3 or 4 days at that point. And my first time ever leaving the United States, I felt more connected there than since I was probably in elementary school.
So we went drinking at different bars and whatnot, and I couldn't help but notice, I'm like, dang, like we're out here, and I know that in general I would definitely feel like I was on red alert, like spidey senses on 10, but not out there. I felt safe. Everybody was having a genuine good time. People were laughing, joking, drinking. Yes, no matter what setting you're in, it could be Europe, it could be Asia, it could be whatever. If you get a little too much alcohol in your system, people start getting a little rowdy.
Yeah.
So there was that, but I never once had the fear of somebody, you know, opening fire into a crowd
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Or running through and harming people. And I'm like, whoa, you can really let loose. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, you can't be ignorant. You still should be aware of your surroundings
Yeah,
and protect
yeah,
yourself
absolutely.
at all times. I noticed that I could
Not-
not do that.
Not every place perfect, and you should always keep some guard up, but it even still, the guard compared you have to put up in Europe, let's say, to America, the guard you would put up in Europe would be a piece of paper, trying to stop a bullet with a piece of paper here in America.
That's something I would not allow myself to do in the United States. I'll give you a very good example. There was a bar I went to in the United States a few years ago, and the night was getting a little crazy. Everybody, you know, has a lot of alcohol in their system, and of course, people don't make the best judgments when they have alcohol in their system. Well, there was an argument between two individuals, and the argument turned into a fight that made its way to the parking lot of the bar, and shots rang out, and everybody screamed and ran in every which direction but loose. And I'm saying that is what I'm talking about, right? That's not something that is normal in Europe. That's not something you expect to happen in Europe, but that is something absolutely.
And also here, people always try to be like, I'm tough man. I'm the tough man. I'll show this POS what's up. He ain't got nothing on me. I'll show him. And then you start fighting, and once I will start losing, and they like, oh, I can't lose to this loser, and they pull a gun out and start shooting it. It's like, what are we supposed to do with this?
Absolutely to expect in America. Will it happen 100% of the time? No, but more often than not, it is a very likely possibility that will happen. And it's not even a joke
Freaking
at this point.
egos,
That is
man.
a very real reality. And so again, because that is a real reality, there are certain things you cannot do. And I feel like you can't fully be yourself in a setting like that, where your
Yeah.
spidey senses are on 10 out of 10. It's sad. It seems like we've taken so many steps back recently that it hurts, man. It really hurts. And I'm
Yeah.
not the only one complaining. You could ask most Americans what they appreciate about the country and what they don't appreciate about their country, and it lines up. As we've talked about a lot in this video already, and I won't beat a dead horse, gun violence is just a thing that I don't worry about at all in Europe, and I always worry about it in America, no matter where I'm at. Think about that concept for a second. It doesn't matter where in the 50 states you go to, anywhere in the United States, anywhere. I thought it was limited to states that had prominent cities. No matter where you are in the United States, gun violence is a real reality. So you have to navigate accordingly. But in Europe, I don't feel like that at all. Now, there are other things I fear. In Europe, I'm like, damn, I really don't want my phone stolen, so let me make sure
Yeah.
I like keep everything secured so I don't get pickpocketed. But I'd much
Yeah.
rather deal with that than like my life being lost.
Yeah, you can replace a phone. You can replace a phone. You can replace, your wallets and cards. You can, if you lose it, you can call and cancel your card so the pickpocketer can't, use it for whatever. But that I can deal with. But someone getting angry because they didn't like what I said and pull a gun out of me and shoot me in the chest and kill me on the spot? Hell no.
Because someone had a bad day at work or school.
Exactly.
We're going to touch back on that point I made earlier about the police being far less of a threat in Europe than in America. In America, it definitely feels like cops have had a very bad reputation of being corrupt in the United States. Now, it's not, I don't think it's most cops in America, but it's so many of them that the entire public has lost a severe amount of trust, to the point where worldwide people are looking at our police departments in the United States real sideways, like, that that's sketchy. There was just a
Yeah.
cop recently that was arrested for planting evidence on random people that he would stop. And I think he got 30 or 40 people arrested wrongfully. And it took years for his own department to catch him in the act. And I'm like, that's unfortunate, right? Police brutality is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
And just how police officers interact with the civilian populace in general, it's very hostile. So there is not a whole lot of respect for.
Well, you got to think they're on edge too, because who knows who has a gun, right? And they're thinking the same thing. Oh, we just pulled this, let's say, like, drug dealer over, and he's like, oh, I got the bad guy. It's like, oh, I got a felony. I don't want to go back to jail, and they'll start poo-pooing the cops and stuff. So it's the danger's there, and I understand why they're on edge, but I think they need more training than anything.
Police in America as a whole, and I noticed that that same sentiment was not echoed in Europe. When I made pit stops in other countries and stuff like that, the cops were there, but they were chilling. They were very docile and everything. There wasn't anything wild happening. They weren't pressing people every stretch of the way. They were there to do their job, and that was it, right? Some people even talked to them casually, and I'm like, whoa, that's insane. I can't imagine a reality where that is a normal thing. Now, it's not like you can be best buds with a cop or something, right? But it definitely seemed a lot more chill in Europe than in America. Now, I understand a lot of you guys watching this video have probably said this 1,003 times. I'm sick and tired of Americans calling Europe a country or acting like all of Europe is one big ass country, because obviously you guys are comprised of a bunch of different countries in the continent of Europe. But I'm willing.
Yeah, I'm not saying Europe as a whole, but you guys have principles, although different, but echo the same thing. Like your healthcare system. Although in Germany it's different than France and Spain and England and Italy and Denmark or whatever. But it covers the principle of what it's supposed to do, right? It helps the people and the health of people and happiness of people. And not everybody in Europe is worrying about medical bills. And it's the last thing on their minds when they get sick and stuff.
Throughout most of Europe, the cops are not that hostile. They're not that hostile. Now, can they get hostile? I think so. Out of all the countries you got in Europe, some of them got to be hostile, right? I think. I don't know. From my personal limited experience, it seemed way safer. Adding to other elements that unlocked a part of myself I would have never unlocked where I'm from. Public transportation is another point that I can bring up. In the United States, I grew up in Chicago, so I got 1,003 stories being on public transportation. Was it very effective? Absolutely. Was it chaotic a lot of the time? Absolutely. And that's anywhere where there's public transportation in the United States, obviously. I didn't get that vibe in Europe at all. It was very chill. Yes, people are still people at the end of the day, so there's obviously conflicts, arguments. There was just an incident in Germany where an American got into it with somebody that was on the train that was bothering these two women, and he wound up getting injured, sliced across the face.
So I had entered the tram with my host brother and my friend, and we took seats right next to a woman at the time that was later going to be the one that was assaulted by that initial man. The man came over, started disturbing her, started harassing her, touching her. I stood up, intervened, vocalized the fact that I did not approve of what he was doing. I told him to stop. He took that as a threat to violence and proceeded to hit me, and then I exchanged blows with him. He retreated backward. I tried to maintain distance, stay with my hands open, trying to protect the woman. She was my main priority, or her safety was my main priority. But he continued to try to attack me, and at that time I heard a quick click. I looked to the right, and I saw a man that I had never seen before with a brutal expression on his face lift up his hand and cut me in the face with a knife.
Because he engaged with the individual that was bothering these women. So things like that can happen, but is it a common occurrence? No. So still, feel very safe on the trains and stuff in Europe. In America, I feel less safe for sure. Less safe because you got a lot of crazies all put together. And like, oh my God. Imagine, like I told you, you already have an environment where people are on edge, right? And if you put them in like a close quarters scenario, it gets very interesting. Now, at the end of the day, most people just want to get from point A to point B. So it's not crazy big. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. It's not like your guard has has to be up 25-8, right? But it does have to be up. You can't just blindly go through America and you feel like you're untouchable. Now, in a different way, Americans will fire back and say, well, I traveled in Europe and I felt unsafe for other reasons. Again, like I said, Europe is not completely void of not feeling, or people not feeling safe at all. One of the things I noticed with Europe, and I've seen videos recently pop up all over YouTube, and you guys might know what I'm talking about, is the pickpocketing that gets absolutely out of control. There will be groups of people that will target you and stuff like that and try to take your belongings and whatnot. And when you try to get your belongings back, they scream and shout, and then the cops all of a sudden start to respond to you and not the people that stole your stuff. So it's been a thing for a while. I had a buddy that lived out in Europe for a little bit, like specifically in Italy, and he said that pickpocketing was pretty bad. Very bad. So Italy and France were the two locations that he said pickpocketing was pretty bad. And
Yeah, specifically Paris, though. I don't know about the countryside of France. Probably a lot less so, but it definitely in Paris. That was like the number one thing about, you got to keep your wallet in front pocket and make sure they don't see it at all. So, yeah, and wear my backpack in front. So I have visual of it the whole time. But that's understandable because it's a big tourist attraction. A lot of people go there. A lot of easy targets, so supposedly. So it makes sense. I think that's kind of like any city in the world generally. But at least they don't pull a gun out and freaking shoot you because, he looked at me wrong.
seen videos, particularly in those two countries in Europe where pickpocketing was diabolical. I almost expected it to be horrible in Germany, but it wasn't. Thank God it was not. For situations like that, where you do get pickpocketed and you do report it to the authorities, not enough's being done to make sure that don't happen again. Because it is still a very, very, very prominent problem, to the point that there are a lot of people that will travel to various countries in Europe and have locks on their bags so people don't go through their stuff, you know what I mean? One thing that I definitely have heard and I got to witness myself while I was in Germany specifically, right, was the public safety, the public sense of trust in basically all of Europe. Because I mean, most of Europe is like this, right? The kids have independence out there. And by that, I mean, it's not uncommon to see a child walking to school by themselves, commuting to school by themselves. They're not taking a bus or whatever, they're biking or walking miles to school. And I'm like, America, they'd be kidnapped in a heartbeat. It's very telling, right? And you can
I don't know if any of my international viewers know, but we got Amber Alerts. I don't know if you guys use anything like that, but Amber Alert is like when like a kid or somebody in general gets kidnapped, they send a broadcast out to everybody saying, hey, this vehicle was last seen with this person, and the license plate number and everything. I see that broadcasted on the highway signs at least 3 times a month. 3 times a month.
See that all of these things that I'm bringing up, they add to why most Americans behave the way they do when they do leave the country and see other places for the first time. We bring our defaultism with us. We try to apply the rules of where we live to a new space, right? We're very on edge, or we're overly excited, and we're very loud and boisterous and not considerate to what's around us because we're just so overwhelmed, right? We've seen and been through quite a bit and stuff in our own ways that we don't even realize until we're like, dang, why can't we have that? You know what I mean? We've talked about what I'm about to bring up next. And so I'll keep it very brief. Imagine being afraid to go to the hospital because you know you're going to be stuck with a bill you can't pay. Does that make you feel more or less safe? Just saying.
A lot less.
That's something that collectively
safe.
Throughout all of Europe, most of Europe at least, they don't have to worry about. In America, we all worry about it. If we get into a car accident, an injury.
Like I was saying earlier, if I break my leg or get sick, I'm I'm done for.
Of any kind, an illness of any kind, one of the first things we worry about is how much is that bill going to cost? Cost of living is already diabolical right now, worldwide. And in America alone, high, very, very high. So adding a ridiculously huge bill on top of
Like the apartments or the housing, I should say, the housing that they're building around here is $2,700 a month. Nobody around here is making. You have to get a job in another state to make that, and it's usually people coming up from the other state, which would be Maryland. They're the only ones that can make that, and even that, they're still struggling a little bit. I don't get it.
the already existing
And those houses are garbage. One little spark that catches on fire, that 15 homes are gone because it's all plywood. And I haven't seen the inside of them, but I bet they were built very quickly, and they ain't going to last no more than 50 years. Probably not even 40 years. And my house is 130 years old right now and still very good condition.
Those that we have is horrifying for us. In general, right, this is a generalization, crime rates in Europe are a lot lower than in the United States. So the idea of being preyed upon is not as high in Europe as it is in the United States. And that's a very immediate sense I got being out there versus being in the US. I'm like, oh, okay. By the way, it depends on where you are, right? In the United States, like you go to some places and you're like, okay, I'm generally safe here for the most part. But I feel like there's more of those locations in Europe than there are in America. And again, something that I also feel like adds to the feeling of feeling more safe in Europe than I think I feel in America, and it's a common sentiment that a lot of people who have traveled have felt as well. Now, again, there are situations, a lot of situations where people still don't feel safe in Europe as well, depending on what's going on. There are a lot of situations that are like that. So if you have had a situation that you've been in Europe where you did feel unsafe, let me know in the comments down below. If you are a person who has traveled to America where you felt unsafe as well, let me know in the comments down below what was your experience.
You do the same. I wanna know in the comments below about how you feel the safety in America.
I would love to know and hear from you guys. The biggest thing out of everything I brought up so far that shattered me was the emotional weight of comparison. I shouldn't be looking at Europe and saying, damn, like Europe feels so much safer than the country I was born and raised in. I shouldn't be saying that.
I shouldn't be the reality of what I've experienced. I shouldn't be saying that either. But here we are.
Experienced and what many Americans have experienced making the same journey I've made. It sucks. Safety should be a given and not a privilege.
Now, would I be able to say the arguments I'm saying, and because I agree like almost pretty much everything he's saying, because I've been to Europe. I know what the environment is like. I know how the communities are. It's there and it's not here. And if I never traveled to Europe, I feel like I would be more ignorant on what he was saying.
Right? I look at safety as a privilege now. The fact that you feel safe is a privilege, and that should not be a thing. That should be a right. And I did not realize
every inch of the world should be a right.
Americans, we've just accepted is not a right in the United States. Why do you think everybody wants to concealed carry a gun? Like, well, most people want to conceal carry a weapon or own a weapon of some sort. They're afraid of someone breaking into their house and stealing their stuff violently or getting beat up, jumped, whatever. Why is it that people hold the Second Amendment in the United States so high in high regard? It has a lot to do with the lack of safety in America. What I was able to experience in Europe felt like being able to be just as free as, you know, an innocent child feels when they are in a safe environment where they feel like nothing bad can happen to them. The reality is, no matter where you are in the world, anything can happen at any time. But it was very...
Like I said, the massive terrorist attacks in France, and then me being there less than a year later. Of course, a lot of things can happen. But I don't think that would have happened because how all the Frenchmen were on edge, because there were soldiers walking around that I saw when I was there. So, and I was still more worried about pickpocketers than a terrorist attack or anybody going crazy.
Telling to me when I physically felt safe in a country that I was told would mistreat me, drag me through the dirt, the mud, whatever, and I got a different experience. Again, acknowledging that I went there as a tourist and not a person living in various countries I traveled in Europe. But even me traveling to different states in America, I felt the same no matter where I went. I'm like, oh God, good God, fuck.
Yeah.
It's just like a default setting. And my default settings changed traveling to Europe. Let me know what that experience was like in the comments down below. I will preach this till I am blue in the face. Get out and travel. It doesn't have to be Europe. It could be Asia. It could be anywhere. Get out of the States and just travel. You don't have to move, but just travel and see the world and develop a worldview so you understand what you have and what you don't have and what you can do to improve the place that you currently.
Since I traveled, I think that's why me and him are pretty much right at the same level of any of the arguments he made, anything I made. We're perfect aligned with each other when it comes to the differences from here in America and in Europe, or even in Asia. I've never been to Asia. I want to at some point, but I think everybody is kind of like moving on, and America's going backwards when it comes to everything. So let's finish this video.
A lot of people get misconstrued since I do these videos and stuff comparing Europe to America and highlighting the privileges that exist in Europe that don't exist in America, that I hate America. I don't hate America. I'm very critical because I want it to be better.
What he said there, I don't hate my country at all. And I, like, right at the end, I want it to be better, just like he said. And I want it to be that shining city on the hill again. And even if we're not the sole superpower of the world, I want it to not be the thorn in the side of the like it is now. So I liked his video, and I hope you get a lot out of this. I've been talking for a while now, so keep it civil in the comments. I know there's probably some what do you say, like bad vibes that happens in the comments when it comes to stuff like this, but I appreciate you guys watching, and like and subscribe, help me build up this channel. And I think I'm gonna do more of James Bray, I think how you say his name, James Bray. Yeah. I'll leave his channel in the description below, and I'll see you later.